It's the 11th of May, and this is your Monday Microdose. So I was introduced to a guy named Greg who owns Everyday Cycles in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he and some of his pals have a podcast of their own, and they invited me to be a guest. And I found that it's a lot easier being a guest. So it's called Full Spectrum Cycling, and if you're on Apple Podcasts, you can just look for Fat Bike Radio. Oddly enough, the one thing we didn't talk about were fat bikes. We did talk about kind of my history in the bike business, and we talked about e-bikes, and we talked about music. You know, kind of a wide-ranging conversation, which is, I think, you know, what you would expect. But really good guys, and I had a good time, and look forward to doing it again, should they be so inclined. Full Spectrum Cycling, and like I said, on Apple Podcasts, it's Fat Bike Radio. So the bike business seems to be going through a bit of a mini boom. You know, so there's good news and bad news with regards to COVID-19. The mini bike boom seems to be one of the good things. As soon as people were forced to kind of hunker down, they either pulled their old bike out that has seen some or little or no use, scampered off to the bike shop and had it fixed up so they could ride it, or they went out and bought new bikes, which initially was one of the things that was a little confusing to me, because all of the big bike companies have been stripped of kind of that entry-level bike path bike. And I didn't really understand it at first until another rep of mine who was out on a ride, and he stopped by the shop, and we started talking about this, and he said, well, you know, normally those people would have probably, you know, purchased a much less expensive bike at a sporting goods store, say Dick's or REI. But those places aren't open. And I was like, oh, you know, that never, ever occurred to me. It never occurred to me. Because, you know, I guess good, bad, or indifferent, during this whole thing, my life has been relatively unchanged. I jokingly say that I've been socially distant most of my life. And bike shops were deemed essential. So and I do most of my business by appointment. So it never really occurred to me. And I haven't been in a Dick's in, God, over a decade. So it never occurred to me. So the good news is a lot of bike shops are doing gangbusters business. And someone on Twitter, you know, I was interacting with, said that the bike paths are just, you know, overwhelmed, crammed with people, which, you know, under normal circumstances would also be a good thing. And if we use DOT logic, you know, if you got bike paths and greenways that are overwhelmed, that means that you need more of them. So the big question, the $64,000 question that I have is, you know, will it last? When everything kind of goes back to normal, will these people, you know, continue to ride their bikes and continue to patronize local bike shops, or will it just kind of return to the way things have always been, which is people buy a bike like that and they may ride it a half a dozen times and then it gets hung in the garage and they kind of forget about it. I want to believe that they'll continue to ride. My gut tells me that it's probably not going to last, but we'll see. So my question is, for this week, what are you seeing out there? Are your bike paths overwhelmed? Are you seeing a lot more people riding bikes? And do you think it'll last? And I guess, given the tone that of my friend on Twitter, do you want it to last? So that's my question for this week. It's an interesting question. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It's good that, people are getting outside. Brooks has, from time to time, released a number of, limited edition, kind of special edition saddles. And they've been doing it more and more over the last handful of years. And for the last year, I've been trying to get access to those saddles, and I've finally been able to do it. So I want to show you one. And this is a special edition Cambium C17. So it's not an all-weather. It's a cotton top, black rubber base. But it's got these fancy schmancy copper rivets and copper colored back plate. Pretty cool. Really nice. A little bit more money than a standard Cambium, but I guess that would be expected. And might be just the thing to finish off the bike you've been working on. I'll stick a description or a link in the description if you want to check it out a little further. Yeah. That's everything for this week. Full Spectrum Cycling. Go check out Greg's podcast, Fat Bike Radio on Apple. Until next time, be nice, work hard, ride bikes, play music when you can. I'll talk to you soon.